This is the English version of the third part of a talk I originally gave at the German Code Rage 2021. In the first part, simple completion proposal example reusing the installed SynEdit components, I have already briefly introduced the Delphi conversion programs Delphi to CPP and Delphi to CB, as well as the SynEdit components, which will not be repeated here. Now, in this third part, we will demonstrate how to convert a more complex EditApp demo without using the installed components. Instead of the installed components, the code of the components converted to C++ is now used. Here you can see the directory of the EditApp demo. It consists of a project group with 3 projects: an MDI project, an SDI project, and a workbook project. I'm concentrating on the workbook project. Because it is not very interesting to watch Delphi to CB at work, I start converting the EditApp demo files in the background using a batch file. I briefly show the contents of this batch file. A Delphi to CB project file and the directory of the files to be converted are passed here as parameters. If, as here, no separate target directory is specified, the converted code is written to the source directory. I want to make a few comments about the project file. Again, I have already prepared the options, of which I will show a little bit more this time. The C++ builder generates headers with the extension HPP for installed components, which can then be included in a code file as shown in the line below. The code converted with Delphi to CB, on the other hand, has the extension H, so that the translated code does not conflict with the code of the Delphi components. Correspondingly, there are 2 groups of file directories in the project options. In the second group, there are the files enclosed with the HPP extension. These are essentially the files from the Delphi RTL and VCL that are the files that do not have to be translated. Although they are not translated, they are needed for the translation. The first group specifies the files that are to be translated or whose existing translation is to be used. I'll see now how far we've got with the conversion, and we are done. I now proceed as shown in the first part of the video. I start the main form exchange utility, open the main file and rename the generated code files. I already copied the name of the main form to the clipboard. Now I create a new VCL application. This time it's important to replace the name here because it's not the default name. The name of the main form file is also copied to the clipboard and the project is saved. As a name for the project, I chose the name that was already used in Delphi. Then I close the new project, undo the renaming, close the tool and open the C++ Builder project. This error message is due to the fact that the main form file depends on another form file that has not yet been included in the project. I catch up on that now and add a few more files. Then I also need to add the helper code. All files except the D2C sys file. I'm skipping the following steps because otherwise the video would be too long, especially since there are a number of errors in the code that need to be corrected. But I want to point out an important point. Form editor is the critical form in which the SynEdit components are used. Now, however, the pre-installed components shall no longer be used, but their translated source code. Here is at first the SynEditor component, and SynEditor Search is also used here. I move them both to the private section. Then I switch to the form and delete the components out of here as well. We now need a new onCreate event handler in which the SynEdit components have to be initialized by code. I have already prepared the code. I have a small project for this that automatically generates this code from the form file. Unfortunately, it is not in such a condition that I could pass it on. Here you see that the SynEditor is created with new and the form is assigned as a parent. In addition, the properties are set that would otherwise have been in the form file. The same happens for the search dialog. If I wanted to compile it now, it wouldn't work because there were some errors. I don't want to show you how to fix them fully here. Instead, I show a text comparison of the automatically generated code with the corrected code. As already shown, the SynEdit components are moved. TEditor cannot be created because the class is abstract. TEditor is derived from three interfaces in which abstract methods are defined, and in C++, unlike in Delphi, you cannot create classes with abstract methods. That's why I've added simple functions here to implement the abstract methods. In the C++ file, I made a big change. There is an editor factory here, and it uses an interface list. In order not to insert additional Delphi helper code again, as demonstrated in the second video, I simply used a standard vector here. This results in a number of further code changes. Because we now have a standard vector, we don't need to create feditors with new. Instead of count, the size method is used. Instead of accessing the items, the direct access operator can be used. Instead of add, we use pushback. I now just close this unfinished application and instead open the already prepared corrected application and I run it. I open a file and take the form editor file just discussed as an example, and you can see the syntax highlighting here. This was the third and last part of the presentation about converting Delphi projects into C++ Builder projects using the SynEdit components as an example. You can find the generated C++ code on GitHub, download it and compile it with the C++ Builder. The code has hardly been tested and I would be happy to receive feedback and I like to correct any bugs.